Funding for Arts in Context is provided in part by an award from the National Endowment for the Arts.
I think that potters have to find the clay they like. That some potters are stoneware potters, and some potters like smooth clay, some people like low fire, and I never worry about, not selling a pot or that I ought to be making the pot that somebody else is making, because these are the pots that I really like to make. This is the clay I really like. When I first threw, I first threw porcelain, which this is. Very hard clay to throw, ornery, dries fast, cracks. So this is my favorite part, throwing. There's a lot of grunt work. There's recycling clay. There's a lot of time spent decorating. I'm probably known best for my decoration, but this is the stage I like the very best. This is, to me, the most creative part. I like to think about form. I work in cycles. Like if I were making teapots, I would make a series of them, and each one during the day would probably get a little bit better. It used to be I would have to sort of work up to that, but then I'll get through a cycle of maybe making 5 teapots, make them one day, put them together, and then, I get them through the firing and the glazing, and I'm thinking about how I'm going to glaze them when I'm making them. But then it's over. I'm on thinking about the next teapot I'm going to make. So it just keeps going, and it's just endless. It's like I never get bored.
I came to New Mexico to be a truck farmer. I had wanted to spend some time just growing vegetables for local farmers markets. And I was doing that when I first came to Ojosarco, which has been now about 28 years ago. And Kathy and I met here. I started helping her just with the heavy work in the pottery. I started loading kilns and mixing glazes and doing some of that work while I was still thought of myself as a farmer. I just gradually became more and more involved, and we developed a line of hand-built and slab pieces that is pretty much what I do, and sort of complements Kathy's wheel-thrown work. Trick to this is going with the clay and not fighting it. The clay wants to do something, and you can influence it, but you can't really contradict it. You have to figure out where it wants to go and just kind of help it get there. Over the years of all this hard work, I've developed a whole series of calluses on my hands. It's not, my biggest challenge is to keep from making these little dents all over the pot with the calluses on the palms of my hands. You can work in shapes that aren't round by nature, and yet you still can make it become kind of something with some depth and some shape to it. There it is.
Hasn't been a financially great living, but it's been a great living. I feel really lucky. At this point too, most of the time we can pretty much make what we want. We sell to a few galleries. We mostly sell out of here. And those galleries understand that we don't really want orders. We want to make what we're making. Because they're going to get the best work that way. And if they tell me to make a yellow pot with pink dots that looks like a water can, I'm not going to do a good job. People have probably been making pots like this for hundreds, thousands of years, but there's something very universal about that. And this one, when I glaze it, it'll be fun. I can really make it flow and fluid. And my early years, I couldn't glaze a pot and make it fluid. They were static. And it just takes lots and lots of brushing and over and over and over. And that's the thing, because people go, oh, production potters, they do it over and over and over again. But boy, that's what makes you good. That's what makes you fluid. I mean, it's not even just good, but that you can just do it without thinking, or it goes with the music or whatever. So I think it's fine that I make a lot of pots. I get better with every one.
There's nothing else that I even can imagine doing that I like as much as what I do. It's a lifestyle that I feel like I was born to, being kind of isolated from a Midwestern farm. My imagination ran wild back then, and this just lends itself beautifully to that. I like the hermit lifestyle, just kind of walking out here in the morning with a cup of tea and getting started and not quite knowing where anything is going to go. But yet, at the end of the day, you have something, and it speaks to you, and hopefully it'll speak to somebody else in some way, shape, or form. It's magical. Art is magical, and I love it. I've thought about other professions, and I can't think of anything else that even comes close. The only other thing I ever thought I might want to do would be surgery. Thought I might want to do surgery and kind of cut people open, and realize that this is kind of the same thing, except I'm exposing, hopefully, myself and other people in another way, not exposing the internal, but not with a knife. And so no, this is it. You know, everybody has something they feel like they need to do or are here to do, and this seems to be my ideal. I started when I was probably 5 or 6, and I went to a country school in Nebraska. And in Nebraska, we don't have a lot of, especially the town I was from, 2,000 people. We didn't have libraries full of art books, and of course there were no videos and that type of thing, and schools didn't teach the arts all that much. But that's all I was obsessed with, was drawing, making things from nothing, constructing things. So from then on, I didn't know what an artist was. All I knew is that's what I wanted to do. And everybody wants or has their own ideas about who they are and wants to share the experience that they've gathered. And it's all about creating a silent language between the piece of artwork and the person looking at it. Because often, if you're not there for an opening, you don't see the person that's looking at your artwork, so you can explain it. So it's the ideas they bring to the work, and then you just hope there's some kind of activity that goes back and forth between the piece and the person looking at it. I think just to be tenacious, just to get your teeth in there and just hang on for dear life, because it's not easy. And it may require 2 jobs, it may require more than 2 jobs at a time, and that's okay. You learn by all of those experiences, and it just goes into your artwork and makes stronger artwork in the long run. But I think to be true to your dreams, I go back to that over and over again, because there's been so many times when it would have been much easier just to have had the job and make the money and have the good insurance and all the things that get a little scary, especially as you get older. Those things seem to become more important, and I don't know, to me, giving up the dream would be the death. You know, maybe not the physical death, but in a way, just the death of a person. So I think just to hang on to your dreams, it doesn't have to be art, but whatever it is that you want to do, to hang on tight to it and just not let it go. And that's difficult to do, but it's worth it in the end.
Ghosty smiles, always looking for new bodies to haunt, and it's been here and disappeared. It's hanging around aloofly for a while, gradually gone. It's pleasing and freezing. Well, I wonder what it is you're after. Keeping company with this disaster. Looked all over town, got turned around to walk back through the mud, the kind you had left behind you. Everybody's the same in this long knowing game, where every new blood gets time to become resigned. you never try to tame your master.
I'm a Massimo Doretto. I'm a small artist of paper on leather. We make all the things you see here. I make book. It's a 20 years, 25 years we make book. And our mission is make nice thing, nice quality in this world, where it's very difficult, very hard to find nice thing, nice quality. The most important thing is the quality of the material you use. You know, the paper is very important, the leather is very important, and the technique. When you make the book, it's very easy to put a small piece of leather, glue, press, nothing else. It's very important in dimension. The small particularity is very important, the emboss with the hot tools, brass tool, but you have to know which kind of tools you use. The dimension of the book, small, you use one tool. If it's a big, you use another tool. If it's the inspiration of the book is in 16th century, you have to print with one type of tools. If the inspiration is the 18th century, you have to use another tools. Allora, all this experience give you the possibility to make a very easy thing, very quickly thing, but with a nice quality representation. Because I tell you, it's a very important to know the tradition of this work. The tradition, the history of this work, if you are book-minded, give you the possibility to make also very simple thing, but fantastic quality. The people, when they come in the street and they see my shop, the first thing is very curious, because it's a very strange thing. 95% of the shop you see here, in Venice, but I think all over the world, where there is a lot of people, a lot of touristic, is made in China. It's made only with the conception of the profit, the money. For us, it's very important, the money, absolutely. I stay here for my work, for my job. But I think it's very important to live with the conviction, give nice thing for the correct price. It's my philosophy of life, you understand? But because I'm a serious person, when I see it's not possible to make this philosophy, to make this thing with my mind, with my, I think it's a finish. I change it completely. It's too much important for me because I love my city. I love my work. I know I don't want to print art, to make art, but just a small thing, but a quality thing. No, but this is the unique really thing I have, and this is the reason, because I tell you, when is a finish, the passion is a finish. So I prefer to sell other things, or I prefer to change my life. I like the mountain. I go to make honey in the mountain. It's better. No.
I have a background in theater and in art history and in education. And when I became a parent, puppetry just became a much bigger part of my life. It was a way for me to play with my children, and I got hooked. I became interested in Taiwanese puppetry through a friend of mine who was living in Taiwan. Because I was a puppeteer, he sent me some puppets, and I became enamored, particularly with the design of these particular puppets and the way that they operate. So I began to do some research, began to practice with them, and began to learn about Taiwanese puppetry. For one thing, it's a beautiful tradition. The puppets are unique in their design and in the things that they're able to do. The puppets are built around a small glove that's inside this elaborate costume. The feet are carved of wood, as are the hands and the head. And as you can see, the legs are weighted in a way so that they balance very nicely, so that you can take the puppet and do that kind of thing with it in a very graceful manner. For most hand puppets that we're familiar with, you get the waist up. You never have legs. You never have this feature of the puppet being able to walk or step or do tricks. So there are design elements there that I think are really fascinating. I'm in a kind of unique situation as a non-native person who's interested in this tradition. But in this day and age, that's not really that unusual. We have Asian conductors of Western symphonies here in the United States. I was asked this question when I was in Taiwan recently, and I pointed out to them that on the back of the Taiwanese dollar bill is an image of Taiwanese boys playing baseball. I said, this is America's pastime here, but you consider it to be a major sport here in Taiwan. On my way over there, I was in the airport in Tokyo watching sumo wrestling, and some of the best sumo wrestlers in the world right now are these American guys from Hawaii. So it's happening all around in different art forms. I just happen to be interested in Taiwanese puppetry and playing with dolls. So I guess that makes me unique. So not relying on it as my sole source of income, I don't have to entertain too many doubts that my family will starve because I play with dolls. Doubts. Sometimes I don't tell people that I do this because they just wouldn't understand. And that's part of the anonymity too, is that nobody really has to know who's back there doing this. Puppetry is not paying the bills in my house. Perhaps it will sometime, but it's a difficult road. The money to be made in puppetry, certainly as a solo performer, is in birthday parties. And I got tired of the birthday party routine. For one thing, I'm not interested in contributing to the impression that puppetry is only a children's art form. As a person with a background in the theater could be very frustrating. You have to work with a lot of people and a lot of egos and a lot of money. And I guess I'm a control freak too, because I get to play with an entire troupe now that's under my command. And that's a real pleasure.
Funding for Arts in Context is provided in part by an award from the National Endowment for the Arts.